No matter how much I straddle this Jurassic fern, I just can't seem to get into the mindset of dinosaur. I'm gonna have to call in an expert.
What do you want?
Sorry, I was looking for peeps.
Whatever.
Good afternoon, Jank enthusiasts. I'm MBT, and this is 10-Minute Testing. Okay, subathon's over. We've had our fun / hostage crisis. So let's return to our regularly scheduled programming and round out the decks from Wild Survivors. Presenting Transcendosaurus.
Drake? Drake?
So here's the list, courtesy of the one and only Peeps Yu-Gi-Oh! If you have problems with this deck, please comment below, though don't get your hopes up because I'm pretty sure he can't read. As always, I'll give you a background about the archetype, a little bit of a discussion about what I hope the deck can do, and of course, the card by card. But first, this video is sponsored by Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck. Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck is the #1 place to go if you need a pack simulator, a card database, or want to read a wealth of strategy articles. They also post breakdowns and lists from every major TCG and Master Duel tournament, including the Master Circuit series. Give them a look at www.ygoprodeck.com. With that, let's take a look at Transcendosaurus. Now, I know this may look like, well, the dinosaur core of Soul Eating Oviraptor, Babycerosaurus, and Miscellaneousaurus that we've been playing for longer than the average Farfa viewer has been alive, but there's so much more to this strategy. The Transcendosauruses are a series of monsters that, and I hope you're sitting down for this, can pop dinosaurs in your hand in order to extend. Refreshing, right? I don't know when exactly Konami decided that murdering children was all the dinosaurs did all day, but you'd think they'd have, like, hobbies or something. Anyway, the reason to play these cards is one ludicrous spell, Ground Xeno, which allows you to add a dinosaur tuner to your hand, destroy a card from your hand, and fuse as well. We're really testing the boundaries of what's okay to put on a single card, provided it supports a terrible archetype. By now, you should be no stranger to the dinosaur playstyle, and rest assured we're still looping baby for powerful Evolzar Xyz monsters. However, we're also weaving in 6-star tuners in Xeno Meteorus, which enabled Baron, 6-star non-tuners like Frostosaurus, which enable Evolzar Soda, and incredibly powerful themed extra deck monsters like Gigantozauler, which is recoverability, and Drillignatheus, which can loop misc. I am not exaggerating when I say that these monsters do everything for the archetype. They're starters, they're extenders, they give it extra deck flexibility and recovery. Now all that's left to discover is if this deck's gameplay loop can still be competitive 6 years after the release of Oviraptor. So with that, let's get into the card by card. First and foremost, the Transcendosauruses. Transcendosaurus Meteorus cannot be normal summoned or set and has to be special summoned by a card effect. During your opponent's turn as a quick, you can destroy 2 other dinosaur monsters in your hand or field, and if you do, special summon this card from your hand. If it's special, you can send a dinosaur monster from your deck to the graveyard, and if it's destroyed, you can shuffle a normal monster from your graveyard into the deck to special summon this card. After that, we've got 2 copies of Xeno Meteorus. If a card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon this card from your hand, and during your main phase 1, you can destroy a dinosaur monster in your hand or field, then special a dinosaur normal monster from your hand or deck. Also, you can't special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn, except dragon, dinosaur, sea serpent, or worm monsters. We're playing 1 copy of Frostosaurus, which is kind of a garnet for this setup, 3 copies of Soul Eating Oviraptor, 3 copies of Petit Pteranodon, 2 copies of Babycerosaurus, 1 Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, 1 Animadorned Archosaur, 1 Miscellaneousaurus, and 1 Dino Wrestler Pancratops. For spells, we're on 3 copies of Pot of Prosperity, 1 Terraforming for 3 copies of Lost World, 3 copies of Ground Xeno. This card adds a dinosaur tuner or a dinosaur normal monster from your deck to your hand that allows you to destroy a card in your hand, and you can banish this card from your graveyard to fusion summon a dinosaur fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as material. After that, we've got 3 copies of Fossil Dig, 2 copies of Double Evolution Pill, 2 copies of Triple Tactic Thrust, 1 copy of Foolish Burial Goods, 1 Triple Tactics Talents, 3 Infinite Impermanence, and 2 Survival's End. This card allows you to destroy as many normal monsters on the field as possible, and if you do, special summon level 4 or lower dinosaur type monsters from your deck up to the number destroyed, but destroy them during the end phase, and you can banish this from the graveyard to target a dinosaur type monster you control and a card your opponent controls and destroy them. In the extra, we've got Gigantozauler. This can be made with a dinosaur and a normal monster. If it's special summoned, you can target a dinosaur monster in your graveyard, add it to your hand, then if special summoned from the graveyard, you can destroy 2 cards, 1 from your hand or field, and 1 your opponent controls. If this card is destroyed, you can shuffle a normal monster from your graveyard into the deck to special summon this card, and afterwards we have Transcendosaurus Glaciasaurus. This card cannot be destroyed by battle. Dinosaur monsters you control that were special summoned from the graveyard cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects, and they can't be targeted by your opponent's card effects. If this card is destroyed, you can shuffle a normal monster from your graveyard back into the deck to special summon this card. We're playing 1 copy of Big Chungus, 1 copy of Baron de Fleur, 1 copy of Zeus, 1 copy of Transcendosaurus Drillignatheus. This is a 2 level 6 monster, and while this card has no materials, if it battles a monster, any battle damage it inflicts to your opponent is doubled. You can only use each of its effects once per turn. You can detach a material for this card, and then target a banished dinosaur monster, special summon it, like Miscellaneousaurus, and if this card is destroyed, you can shuffle a normal monster from your graveyard into the deck, then special summon this card. After that, we've got Soda, Logia, and Dolka. For Link monsters, we've got an Access Code Talker, a Unicorn, a Phoenix, a Masquerena, a Secure Gardna, and a Link Haribo. In the side, we've got 3 copies of Doggeran, 2 copies of Lightning Storm, 1 Harpy's Feather Duster, triple Dark Ruler No More, triple Evenly Matched, and triple Solemn Judgment. So with that, let's jump into the games. Our first match is up against Sword Soul, and this is literally every single Sword Soul pilot I've ever played against. They opened full combo plus 2 hand traps. Excellent. They're on the play. They're going to begin with a copy of Incredible Ecclesia the Virtuous. They're going to fire it off to the graveyard, and if my girl and Moye both drowning, catch me at her funeral, revealing a worm in my hand and summoning a token to my side of the field. Afterwards, they're going to go for a Chi-Shao. They'll activate the effect of the Chi-Shao and the Moye in sequence. We will fire off an Imperm on the Chi-Shao, only to be met with a Heavenly Circle. Things are not looking good from this position. They draw a copy of Drolan Lockbird. Afterwards, they're going to go Ashana, summon it to their side of the field, link it off for a Monk of the Tenyi, then Adhara, in order to summon it, Ashana's effect, in order to summon from deck a Vishada, allowing them to make an 8 here Draco Berserker, before using the effect of Adhara to put the Ashana back in hand and pitching it for the Sword Soul Strategist Longwan. From here, they can make Evil Longwan, do 1200 to us, set 1, and pass. Things are not looking good. We're going to begin with a copy of Infinite Impermanence, ripped off the top for the Chi-Shing Longwan. That's going to deal 12 to us, but thankfully keep it out of commission so we can walk over it with the Pankratops. That destruction is going to allow us to summon a Xenometeorus, then we can use the Pankratops in order to pop our opponent's copy of Draco Berserker. We'll get over this copy of Monk of the Tenyi, then fire off a Fossil Dig into an Ash Blossom, setting the Survival's End and passing turn. Our opponent draws for turn. It's nothing. They pass back to us. We draw for turn. It's also nothing, so we will go to the battle phase and attack directly. We'll pass it back to them, and they draw one of the best cards remaining in their deck, Taya. They're going to normal summon Taya, activate the effect. You might be wondering why we did an effect failure. Well, that's because Survival's End pops that normal monster and allows us to summon a Soul Eating Overraptor. We'll activate the effect here. They're going to go and activate Infinite Impermanence, but we can chain Survival's End to pop the Taya and the Overraptor as well. That allows us to add an Overraptor to hand for next turn, at which point our opponent will concede. Our second match is up against Brandon Bisteel, and this hand looks fantastic. Thankfully, we are going first, and we do have a copy of Lost World, so we'll get things off for the races by activating that and then firing off a Ground Xeno. That's going to grab a Xenometeorus to hand. We will activate its effect after popping the baby, then we'll trigger the effect of the baby in order to get a copy of Soul Eating Overraptor. Overraptor and Lost World will trigger here in order to give our opponent a token and add from our deck to our hand a copy of Miscellaneousaurus. We're going to fire off the Miscellaneousaurus, then activate Soul Eating Overraptor, targeting the token and using Lost World's replacement effect to send a Petit Pteranodon to the graveyard to make a Pankratops. Next, we'll go for Miscellaneousaurus for 2. That allows us to summon from deck a Babycerosaurus, at which point we can activate Xenometeorus to pop it and get a copy of Frostosaurus from deck. Babycerosaurus triggers here, getting us a second copy of Soul Eating Overraptor. We'll go into Solda and a copy of Logia before making Ultimate Conductor Tyranno and passing back to our opponent. They draw for turn and their hand is all gas. They're going to go Lubellion here in order to grab a Bisteel, then activate Branded High Spirits, sending that card to the graveyard, and then firing off this copy of Serenir in order to send from deck to graveyard a copy of Regained. They'll go Fusion Deployment here in order to summon from deck a copy of Fallen Valbaz. That will eat 1 Soda activation. Afterwards, they're going to activate the effect of the Blazing Cartesia in hand, eating the other one. We'll go ahead and get rid of that. They will chain the effect of Blazing Cartesia, but we will chain the effect of Dino Wrestler Pankratops, and unfortunately, they are still able to resolve it into Masquerade. We'll activate Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, and our opponent will end their turn, adding that Blazing Cartesia back to hand, and setting a copy of Branded in Red. Thankfully, we do have the Logia to immediately contest that Branded in Red, but we now are going to have to play a little bit of cleanup duty. We will go ahead and activate this copy of Double Evolution Pill we found off the top in order to grab a copy of Transcendosaurus Meteorus. We'll activate its effect in order to send a copy of Animodor and Archosaur to the graveyard, then go to the battle phase. Replacement effect of Lost World here to get another copy of Soul Eating Overraptor onto our side of the field. We'll trigger its effect in order to grab from deck to hand a Petit Pteranodon. Then we will get over the entire board, that Masquerade, of course, bringing itself back, and we will walk over it. They're going to go Eluber here to negate the effect of the Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, but in main phase 2, we can normal summon the Petit Pteranodon, give our opponent a token, and then activate the effect of the Soul Eating Overraptor, hitting the Petit Pteranodon for a copy of Xenometeorus. Afterwards, we're going to go for a Baron de Fleur and eat the Eluber before passing back to our opponent, who will be able to recycle this copy of Branded in High Spirits. They draw for turn. Bisteel Druisworm is a good card, but not good enough. They're going to go for it, then in main phase, send it to the graveyard for Lubellion. Lubellion will trigger, allowing them to set a copy of Branded Beast. They'll go to the battle phase, then main phase 2, activating the effect of the Blazing Cartesia the Virtuous to summon, at which point we will activate Baron de Fleur. From here, it should just be a hop, skip, and a jump to lethal. They'll beast away our field spell and reset Regained, but that is not going to be enough into our established board. We'll begin by activating Baron de Fleur to stop the Regained, then go to the battle phase, hidden for 24, 35, and lethal. So it's time for game 3, and you know what that means, a best of 3 versus meta. Our opponent's on Labyrinth, and they have a couple of cards in their hand that give us pause. That said, our opener looks pretty fantastic. We're going to begin with a copy of, you guessed it, Fossil Dig, to grab a Soul Eating Overraptor from deck to hand. After activating Lost World, we can normal summon that Soul Eating Overraptor to chain block it, using CL2 to put a token on our opponent's side of the field, and grabbing from deck to hand a Miscellaneousaurus. God still feels so good to say. We're going to fire off the Pot of Prosperity and fight off the Okay, a Ground Xeno will do. We're going to go ahead and fire off that Ground Xeno in order to grab from deck to hand a copy of Xenometeorus, then fire off the Xenometeorus in sequence with a Miscellaneousaurus so that we can activate the Soul Eating Overraptor, targeting the Jureg token and replacing it with a Petite Durandodon. That is going to be hit with the Ash Blossom. Okay, now we can make something happen. We'll go Baron de Fleur and then fire off the Miscellaneousaurus for an Animador to Archosaur. That's going to get us a Linkaribo and a Secure Gardna, which allows us to double Evolution Pill into a Pankratops. We will pass turn here. Our opponent's going to go for a Chandra. They're going to set a copy of Big Welcome, so we have to contest that with the Pankratops now in order to get it off the field. They draw for turn. We need them to fade 1 draw step, and thankfully they do. They just pass back to us here. We draw for turn. We're going to go for the effect of the Baron de Fleur, replacing the effect of that Jureg token with Lost World to send a copy of Baby Sarasaurus and summoning a Soul Eating Overraptor from deck. We'll activate Soul Eating Overraptor. That's going to grab from deck to hand a Petite Durandodon. They're going to go for the Petite Durandodon into the Soul Eating Overraptor, doing the Soul Eating Overraptor shuffle to get a Xenometeorus to our side of the field. After that, we'll activate the effect of the Xenometeorus for a Frostosaurus and the Baby Sarasaurus in order to summon from deck a Soul Eating Overraptor, and my tongue is officially twisted. We'll go to the battle phase, and we are just a hair off of lethal. We're going to put them to 1100 life points, unfortunately just enough to activate this copy of Skill Drain later in the game. We will then, in main phase 2, go for Drilled Gnatheus to not only get a Miscellaneousaurus to our side of the field, but replenish the token on our opponents. They're going to go ahead and activate Labyrinth, set 2, and pass turn. From here, we will draw for turn, and it's another Lost World. Fine. We'll go for the Drilled Gnatheus here. They're going to chain Skill Drain. We are going to chain Baron de Fleur, and they will chain Dimensional Barrier. That's unfortunate because it means at point of resolution, they're going to be able to activate the effect of the Labyrinth, and summon to their side of the field a lovely Labyrinth. We'll go to the battle phase and attack their monster. They will Big Welcome to put the Lost World back in hand, but they still take 100 and lose the game. So it's time for game 2, and well, you can probably already guess what kind of game this is going to be. Our opponent is going to begin with the effect of the Strix Toby, sending this Chandra to the graveyard. They're going to set a copy of Big Welcome. They're going to set 3 additional cards and pass back to us. This is about to be a very eventful draw phase. They're going to begin with a copy of Big Welcome to put this Lady Labyrinth back into the hand. Then they'll trigger the effect of the Chandelagra and the Strix Toby and the Lady Labyrinth, at which point they will go ahead and fire off this copy of Eradicator Epidemic Virus. Well, we've been hand looped for 3, but the remaining 3 are very good. We'll begin with the copy of Soul Eating Overraptor. They will Infinite Impermanence and my life for a Miscellaneousaurus. Okay, go ahead. They're going to go for Strix Toby here to get a Welcome Labyrinth in the end phase. But wait, we have a little pre-main shenaniganry of our own. We're going to summon this copy of Transcendosaurus Meteorus and trigger the effect of this Petite Durandodon in order to summon a copy of Pankratops from deck. We also get to bind a copy of Miscellaneousaurus for next turn, all of which is a cold comfort after seeing the destructive Daruma Karma Cannon. Okay, they're going to go for a Lady Lab and a Welcome Lab for a lovely lady and a Dimensional Barrier. They'll walk over our copy of Dino Wrestler Pankratops, reset this copy of Big Welcome, and pass back to us. It's going to have to be something crazy off the top, and that qualifies if we weren't under EEV. Let's go next. So it's time for that all-important game 3, and oh, our hand is looking pretty good. We're going to begin with a copy of Soul Eating Overraptor, which will immediately eat an Ash Blossom. Okay, our hand is no longer looking particularly good. We'll go for Ground Xeno in order to grab a copy of Xenometeorus. We'll activate its effect to summon it to our side of the field. We'll fire off a Triple Tactics Thrust for a copy of Infinite Impermanence and pass back to our opponent on a Baron. They'll draw for turn, and then activate the effect of the Chandra, setting a copy of Big Welcome and 3 additional cards. This is just about as bad as it gets. We draw for turn, down comes Welcome Labyrinth for a lovely Labyrinth. We'll go to the main phase, fire off this copy of Baron de Fleur into the unknown back row. It is a Solemn Strike. They'll take 15, we'll lose our last remaining monster, but we can now make Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. We will pop this copy of Baby Sarasaurus in hand for a Soul Eating Overraptor. We'll activate its effect. Our opponent's going to chain the Big Welcome Labyrinth. They're going to go for Ariana and bring this lovely Labyrinth back to the hand. We will grab a Petite Durandodon, and we will attempt to imperm the Ariana on their side of the field, at which point they will reveal their last remaining card is Destructive Daruma Karma Cannon. Okay, well, we can't really beat that, so they're going to add a bunch of cards to their hand, activate the effect of Chandra in end phase for a copy of Big Welcome, and summon to their side of the field a copy of Lady Labyrinth. They'll draw for turn, and that's a killer. They'll flip their monster, activate Big Welcome Labyrinth, trigger the effect of the Lady Lab, and I think it's time for us to scoop it up. So we're back, and yeah, got beat by the trap deck. Nothing new there. Let's do the pros and cons. First, the pros. 1, all the explosiveness of Dinosaur is still there. Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, Pankratops, and relatively easy OTKs aplenty in this deck. 2, Lost World. Lost World is one of Dinosaur's most powerful tools. Turning off targeting turn 1 is great for securing combos, and further into the game, it can prevent your board from being broken by Evenly, Lightning Storm, or Engine pieces. And 3, Ground Xeno. This card essentially gets you a level 6 tuner from deck, combine it with Survival's End for more interruption, or plus heavily, or start your combo by popping a baby. And the cons. 1, we still don't have a 1-card combo. This deck thrives off 2-card combos, but it can get sticky and lose to interruption easily in less optimal hands. 2, not the best at grinding. Unless you intentionally weaken your end board, your combo does not set you up for turn 3 onwards. Ground Xeno does give you options of repeatability, but this deck is very feast or famine. And 3, board breakers. Alongside the lack of recovery, Dark Ruler and its ilk can be devastating to your board, leaving you with very little to crawl back with. All in all, it's good, and the new cards are good, but at the end of the day, we're still just reading misc. Thanks so much for watching. A huge shouts out to all of my patrons, but specifically Elena Tincher, Alex Perea, Allison Elliott, Ben Misera, Brett Henry, Bizen Queen, Chaotic Meatball, Christian Malone, Cody Robinson, Da Bears, Darkmaster Zork, DJ Elephant, Executive Slifer, Gabe the Green, John Piet, Jordan Kuntz, King Magic Ruler, Knight Mary, Legal Rights, Lockstone, Luis Hernandez, Materiality, Matthew M. DeRezzo, MBT Play Medolce, Mike Carlotti, NH6574, Puffins of Doom, Rose Lapine, Solar Flare the Ricka Queen, The Hollow King, Tootsie, Troy Says By Erasure is Gay, Vincent Storm, Who's Nick, Wonder Waffle, Yuki, and Yor. I couldn't have done it without you.